I think all art and imagination at some point leads you to think about things that aren't true. And that can be a great exercise for adapting to the world. Differently than we saw it in the Dadaist movement in painting, and we saw a kind of backlash against that with hyper-realism and photorealism. So, in terms of evolution, I think we've evolved as a question-asking species. Questions have helped us to do things like harness the power of fire and discover the wheel and have agriculture and decode DNA and discover penicillin and all this stuff. And what you get out of that is music that many people find unlistenable, but it's part of the game.
Hello, hello, hello. Happy Thursday? Question mark? Yeah, Thursday. We're back. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is. I just know I'm back from GodotCon. And I gotta make a game. How's it going, everybody? I guess we can start in just chillin' mode here. Big mode. Because, yeah, we went to GodotCon Boston. I left on Sunday. Flew across the country. Went to the first GodotCon in America. North America, at least. Normally it's in Europe, in like Berlin nowadays, I think. It's been in Belgium before. But yeah, this is the first stateside one. It was awesome. It was 3 days. Workshops, talks, game showcases, after hours events like bars, you know, the usual game dev stuff. It's super cool. I'm super tired because I flew back in at midnight this morning, local time, which was 3 a.m. Boston time, which is the time zone that I left from. I flew back west across the country, so yeah, I'm really tired, but also it's that mix of tired and inspired and excited. It's that whole comedy. Practical. I was in Boston. No, that wasn't me. That must have been someone else. How's it going, Practical? Practical was there. I was going to show some pictures. Not pictures that I took, because I took no pictures because I'm terrible. You're still there? Awesome. Are you going to PAX? Are you bringing your chalkboard to PAX? That's awesome. I wish I could have done that, because yeah, PAX is following immediately after this, and I wish I had the kind of PTO saved up to do that. Yeah, so there was a bunch. It was cool. It was all in Cambridge at the Microsoft Nerd. These are pictures other people provided. This is like the awesome showcase area. They had a little arcade cabinet where they put up this little mixtape of like local games. I'm not sure what's on the screen right now, but I believe that's Clark the Spark. But yeah, Cambridge is cool. It's very much not what I expect from Boston. Boston is like red bricks everywhere. It's cool. It's old. It's like what everyone expects from Boston is this, right? Like Harvard, you know? This is what people expect from Boston. And a lot of it is this. It's like red bricks as far as you can see. On at least on one side of the Charles River, and then on the side that we were on, it's all fancy new buildings and research centers and all this stuff. Oh, I think this was the outdoor event. That's so awesome. I wish I could have stayed for this. But yeah, here's all the demo area. It was small, but it was cool because everyone there was here's Covino. Just Covino live streaming. I don't know if anyone tuned into that. That was pretty cool. in the back here, there were people trying to beat Momori. Did Ezra come away with the top score? I know he didn't. I'm just messing. But but yeah, it was cool. There was a hangout area which was always full, regardless of kind of what else was going on. Even on the workshop day, a bunch of people came in early and just hung out. We got served all these lunches and coffees and snacks. Here's me, perfectly obscured, sitting next to my buddy Sean, a rocket engineer and Godot developer. But yeah, this was awesome. So good. I don't understand how the next... Yeah, some cool games got shown. Dante's 9 was cool. But, you know, obviously the coolest game shown, which isn't in this picture, would be Momori, which had a speedrunning competition going on. Oh yeah, wish list if you could scan the QR code. There was a lot of great swag. There were pins, there were shirts. There was all sorts of cute stuff there. But yeah, it was really great. It was a great time. Emmy giving the keynote, opening the whole event. Bad Cop gave an incredible talk on their like crazy minority report. That's not Bad Cop. Neither of these are Bad Cops. But yeah, we got some amazing talks from some amazing people. Here's people mostly just posting pictures of their food at this point. But yeah, this was incredible. There was an ask me. There was an AMA with all with Adam Scott and David Snowpeck and Emilio. And yeah, awesome. And I guess now all I got to do is make some games, and I don't remember I don't even vaguely or remotely remember what we were working on. I mean, I guess I do know vaguely. We were vaguely working on the tile map editor, because that's all I ever work on. I just don't remember what we were specifically doing. I tried to make a bunch of changes like the day before the con, and I reverted all of them because like none of them worked. So we'll probably pick and choose from that and go back in, because there's some behavior that I just don't like. But yeah, the event's over. Hopefully it comes back next year. And now we got to go back to the mundane day-to-day game dev that we just live and breathe. Ryder doesn't remember anything. You might have missed something I said. You're running around PAX. Priorities. Priorities, practical. I wish I could. I still have never gone to a PAX. I keep telling myself I will, and it keeps never happening. The closest I've gone is I've seriously considered going to PAX Dev, which is like this event I don't know if they still do it, but they would do it like before PAX Prime or PAX West, whatever. But I really want to. It's a very different vibe, I bet, than, you know, GDC or GodotCon. It's like I would love to see a more consumer-oriented game dev show. That'd be cool. That'd be super cool. But yeah, enjoy PAX. Practical. I'm super jealous. A lot of indies and solo devs. Yeah, it's probably one of the only places you'll see all of that stuff. I mean, you don't see that at quote unquote E3. But yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, enjoy. Next time we're saving up our PTO. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get out there. If it's assuming, I don't even know if the dates are gonna line up exactly, but I hope they do. I would love to do both. I would love to do a GodotCon into PAX. I don't know if I'd have the energy. I might like literally run out of energy. But all right, we're gonna observe some behavior and see kind of what we want to change. I think there was something with the select button that I want to change. So like if you're doing this and you're like just like drawing stuff, and then you switch to select. Oh, if you switch to select, it undoes your tool. I don't actually want it to do that. And then if we copy it, and we select again. I guess that's what I want, is if we're using the clipboard and you select, maybe I want the clipboard to go away. But if you've just got like a regular thing selected and or a regular brush selected and you hit the select button, I probably don't want to clear your brush selection. Yeah. Yeah, what are you doing in the stream? Practical. Go enjoy PAX. That's awesome. I'll see you later. Oh yeah, that's the thing I didn't mention. I got to hang out with a bunch of streamers that I've only ever, well, some I've met at GDC, and 1 or 2 of them are local to me, but there's a lot of streamers that I've never gotten to meet in flesh space that I did, and it was great. Like developer Ezra, JD does dev, Just Covino. Got to meet those. Exo Drifter. That was really great. And then I got to hang out more with some streamers I'd already met at GDC and otherwise, like Practical. That was cool. I didn't actually get to talk to Stay at Home Dev, but I got to see some of their talks. They're just so popular, especially in the Godot space. Yeah, overall, an incredible event. Really looking forward to it again next year. Really hope they keep doing it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to our block placement stuff. So when we say select, we're going to refine this a little bit. So when we begin a selection, what we're going to do, instead of setting the active block tool to empty, I think we can just remove this line. Because I think the clipboard being active overwrites the active block tool. All right, so now I should be able to fiddle around. Oh, I talked to a dev who's like, so we're taking like 3D world data and we're like creating a 2D auto tile from it. I talked to a dev that's doing literally the opposite. They're going in reverse. They set up all of these 2D tile maps to describe the world, and then they convert it into 3D, into a 3D mesh at runtime. And I talked to them for a while because I was like, this is fascinating because it's like literally the opposite of what I'm doing. And so we were talking about all these tools that we want to build, and they were just basically the same tools, but they ran in different directions. It's almost like trying to, it was just funny. It was just a funny thing. Okay, so now when we do a selection, the UI stuff is still getting changed. We're going to change that because effectively we are retaining our active block here, which we want, but I think we're also telling the UI to do something. Where are we telling that? Is it this game.output.tools thing? Probably. Oh man, this is going to be a little tougher then, now that I'm thinking about it. Maybe we can't do this. Because what we're doing is we're actually outputting this command that's the select command, and the fact that we've got a select command is basically releasing the pressed buttons. But if we want to do this otherwise, if we want to only have it affect copy and cut, then we have to add a bunch of additional global state. And I would rather not add that global state if I don't have to. So, you know, I'm actually just going to live with the fact that if you're drawing stuff, if you're in this block placement mode, which is like you've selected something in your palette here and you're drawing stuff, and then you switch to the select mode, I'm just going to accept that that deactivates this block placement, which is kind of what you'd want to do, because if you select something like this, you'll probably want to click drag it or copy paste it. You'll probably want to do something with it. Like, there's no reason to select something and then immediately just keep placing blocks. That doesn't make a ton of sense. It's also questionable to me, like, if I copy this and we drag this over, notice how it's making the wall disappear because the floor is part of the clipboard. I'm actually not sure that's the behavior we want. It's maybe the most obvious behavior, but I'm not sure if it's exactly the behavior that we want. But let's not worry about that right now. We need to focus in probably and actually just try to get this tool done. Because I'm just working on like nice to have features at this point. I feel like there aren't that many must have features. The must have features are probably things like save load. That's probably the only remaining must have feature, but I guess there are a couple of nice to have features that I'd like undo redo. Undo redo, save load. There's still some stuff I want to deal with about camera rotation. Camera rotation. So we want the rotation to be around the used AABB in a sense, rather than being around the whole map. You want to rotate the blocks around the used, because right now we're rotating around the world origin, where what I actually want, the clipboard is not respecting that, really. That's kind of interesting. Notice how this thing is kind of mousing or is following me around. Oh. That's interesting. Okay, well, that's something we can fix. I got to think about what is causing that. Oh, excuse me. I have coffee, but coffee is not enough at the moment. This will probably be a short stream. We're just getting back into the groove. It's probably be like a 2-hour stream. I knew if I didn't stream today, then it would be just the whole week would be like thrown off. So we're chilling. I mean, you know me. I do game dev for a couple hours, then go do laundry, and then go back to work. That's my life. It's like clockwork. All right, so what I'm thinking... Let's keep working on little things about like the AABB and camera relative stuff. And then next week we'll really dig into save load, undo, redo. Sorry. Save load, undo, redo, stuff like that. We'll dig deep into that stuff next week, because I feel like most of those things are related. At least they were as far as my last implementation. The last implementation we were saving and loading and undo and redoing, and the data set that we were using was being pulled directly out of the tile map. So we were treating the contents of the tile map as like as being the authoritative thing. Now we're not, because now we have all of the data stored separately in the simulation layer. And the rendering of it is like an implementation detail. So I'm kind of curious. So how do we want it to... It's a good question because, like, so we build something. Let's build something. Let's purposely build something like off the. So the world or the origin is around here somewhere. Let's very purposely build something off to the side here. Doesn't really matter what. It's just kind of something for us. Just something that's noticeable that we can tell when we're... So if we just start rotating the camera, yeah, it rotates around the origin. Fine. When then what's weird is if we take this and we copy it. For one thing, I'm not happy about the offset to the mouse at the moment. It's kind of wrong. But then if we rotate this, honestly, the clipboard should not turn. The clipboard should not be affected by camera rotation. You should need to do some kind of separate command to rotate the clipboard. And that will also make use of the rotating a bounding box around itself. So the clipboard will just rotate around itself. It won't rotate around like the mouse like it's doing now, which is very weird. I still need a solution to the cutaway, the way the cutaway affects the clipboard. I messed around with some stuff before I left for Boston, and I did not find an acceptable solution. So let's start with that. Let's try to get it so that the clipboard, the thing that's following my mouse around, let's get this to not be affected by camera rotation. So when we rotate the camera, the thing in the clipboard just continues to be... We can tighten up the weird offset with my cursor. I don't love that. And so the way we get around that... Actually, how do we get around that? We might be running up into the limit of the way... The fact that when we're placing blocks, not when we're placing blocks, but when we have what I would call a preview block or blocks like the clipboard, when we're previewing what something would look like in block space if you placed it, which is kind of like when you're just hovering around and something's following your cursor. Right now, that is all being written directly into the tile map. So it would be better if we had those separated for a number of reasons. Like if we had a preview layer that to the tile system, you could treat differently a little bit. So let's look at hover. Let's look at the hover code. So what we're doing here is we're taking the coordinates, we're getting them into an absolute view. So what we want them to do is we want to keep the clipboard in relative view. We don't actually want to go into an absolute view. The absolute view is like camera irrelevant, which you'd think is what we want, but that's what is actually causing the thing to rotate around, because it's like, what does this block actually look like? Where is this block actually? Absolutely. And then the tile system later gets it into a camera relative view. But what we want to do is we want to just preview the clipboard in its camera relative form. And the way we're going to do that Place blocks in clipboard, clipboard bounds, offset, buffer. Place blocks in. So there's this blocks array. That's the contents of the clipboard. This is all being done in absolute coordinates, and that's part of the problem for sure. So what we really want... Reveal inactive blocks, prior bounds, bounds. Bounds equals clipboard bounds dot move. Clipboard bounds is the selection bounds. Clipboard bounds is probably absolute in absolute coordinates. It's probably not camera relative. That's probably part of the problem. When are we even setting clipboard bounds? We should be doing it at the end of a selection. If we're not, then I have some concerns. Oh no, it would be the end of a copy. So at the end of a copy, or cut or a copy. So game.input.selection. Game.input.selection is being set during a selection. AABB coords. Okay, so the selection is being made in absolute space. But we want to treat it... If the camera starts to move, we don't want to change it. Which means we actually want it in camera relative space. But we want to keep it that way. We want to like... I'm not explaining it very well, but we basically want it to remain fixed relative to which way the camera is looking. Even while the camera is turning around. We just want it to remain fixed. I'm just thinking the best way to do that. So the coordinates that we're actually getting are relative. Because they're coming from the input handler, and the input handler, everything the input handler tells us is camera relative, because the input handler doesn't know about any of this stuff. So what we want to do, once we start hovering this thing, clipboard bounds. I feel like clipboard bounds is a lot of the secret. And again, I'm not sure what offset is doing, because we set an offset, and then we do some more offset stuff in clipboard bounds.move. Which is really like a translation. We should probably rename that. Oh. Hold on, I gotta ban someone over here. Alright, are the photon torpedoes loaded? I think they are. In which case, we can ban this spam bot. Got him. Alright. That was fun. That always cheers me up. Pretty much always. Anytime I get to ban a spam bot. Alright, so my suspicion is that when we're doing our hover, which is like drawing things temporarily from like the clipboard or whatever, or the active block tool, My suspicion is that we are drawing them in their absolute coordinates so that when we rotate, they move around, but we want to redraw them every time. Oh, this is actually, that itself doesn't work, because even if we draw them correctly, we aren't going to hit this path if we just submit a view command saying we're moving the camera. It will just try to redraw it there. What we really do need a layer, a separate layer that is the preview layer. That is like, here are things that have not been committed to block space yet. Here's something that we're just previewing what it would look like. And we need that layer to be immune to camera rotation. Like, that layer needs to be drawn the same no matter what. It's a little tricky because that layer needs to be used for the auto tiler. Like, the auto tiler needs to use that layer. But it needs to be immune to camera rotation. Let me think about that for a second. Let's go to the tile system. So in the tile system, where are we doing that sort of thing? It's not here, really. It kind of is, actually. We need a branch of the tile map data update that takes in a supplemental block buffer that includes the preview block data. And we need to not, because we do a bunch of stuff where we're translating things into and out of relative coordinates. So like when we iterate through each block, we get the relative position. We get the camera relative position of the block. Then we get that block's relative neighbor. So like your left neighbor in camera relative space, something like that. And then we get the absolute coordinate of that because the block buffer is stored in absolute coordinates, but the tile system is rendering in relative coordinates. And so what we need to do is when we're doing this, we could have this as an additional pass. That's like a game edit state pass where like if we're in the edit state, let's go through and double check everything. Let's go through and compare against this supplemental layer, basically. And otherwise, if we're not in the game edit space or game edit state, the tile edit state, then we'll just not do that pass. It's probably the way to do it. We should probably split this up a little more explicitly. Yeah, because we can't do this in the tool system, because the tool system doesn't get called when we rotate the camera. Only the view system gets called. Maybe we could do this in the view system. I really need to separate out the entity component code from the actual implementations. Like I have this system folder and it has both like, oh, it actually, our systems don't actually inherit from anything, which is not good. I tried doing them as interfaces, and I think that would be reasonable. Like having, instead of a base class for the systems, they implement like an iSystem interface. I stopped doing that for some reason. I should probably go back to doing that. But yeah, same thing. We have like component folders with like the underlying components and then the actual implementation of the specific components that we're using. I need to not do that. I need to split out the actual entity component implementation from the underlying code that supports it. If I'm ever going to make the entity component thing like a plugin or whatever, which I do, not for other people to use, just for me to have as a plugin that I can implement in other games, I need to do that. So if we're in the view system, oops, I do not want to move a file. So if we're in the view system, we could do things like we could try to process view commands in the tool script as a way to prevent stuff from happening. And in fact, we actually do want to do that eventually. Insofar as like, let's say you try to turn the camera, great. Tool system doesn't need to know about that. But if you try to turn the clipboard, which would be like the same command, but with like a shift added or something. Well, actually, I guess right now the turning the camera is Shift D, Shift A, and going up and down is like Shift W and Shift S. We could have them be like Control instead. I don't want to make it Control. Because WASD right now just pans. But then you also need to be able to rotate and go up and down. And right now, we have just WASD with a Shift key for that. Maybe we just have Control WASD. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. We could also still use Q and E. I need to think about it in the context of a controller, because like when I'm writing these new controls, I hold my controller and I think about like what's the button gonna be. So like our equivalent of WASD is like the left joystick or whatever, right? And then our mouse cursor is the right joystick. And then things like turning the camera left, right, or altering your Z level up, down. Right now I have that on the D-pad, because that seems like the best thing to do. Because it uses your left thumb. Because you're not going to need to like move the camera around pan-wise. And level up, level down, or orbit left, right at the same time. Hey, Matthew Sparks. What's going on? Not much. I got back from GodotCon in Boston, which is like the first North American convention or conference for the game engine I use. It was awesome. That was Monday through Wednesday, but I got there Sunday, and I got back at midnight this morning. But so we're kind of just getting back in the groove. We're thinking about what kind of last things we need to do with our tile editor tool to feel like we're done with it and move on, which we desperately need to do. But how are you doing? How was your weekend? How has your week been? We're kind of just chilling as we get back in the groove today. Specifically, we're thinking about some difficulties I'm having with what I call the hover or preview, the block preview code. Because like right now, the thing that following the cursor is what I would call a preview. And it's usually fine. Like the preview it isn't affected when the camera rotates. Like right now the camera is just turning fine. The problem is that if I select some of this and I copy it, it's following my cursor, but it's turning. And that's because it's all on the same layer. So I'm thinking about making a separate layer for this thing that's hovering around. It's a little weird and awkward, but I think it's the correct thing to do. It would also help a lot with runtime editing. Or like in-game editing. Like, let's say you pop open the in-game editor and you like look at what it would look like to like do something, and then you exit the editor. It doesn't make any whatever. That's actually not a good reason to do it. But yeah, I think we're making this a separate layer. This thing that follows you around. Because this way, if I do it that way and the camera turns, we can make that layer immune to camera rotation. So it will just stay looking like this as everything else turns around it. And I think I want to implement that, but that's kind of a big change. So I'm just thinking out the consequences of doing that. GodotCon looks super cool. See or hear anything of note? Yeah, there was a bunch of talk about, you know, the future development of the engine. Some people talked about cool stuff they've done in the engine, like Bad Cops, incredible. They've made like a Minority Report style interface for streaming, like transparent windows that like exist in 3D around them. It's like super cool. There's been some other stuff, cool stuff people were showing as well that they've done with the engine. It will all be on YouTube, by the way. All the Godot talks were recorded and typically make it to YouTube. They have like a GodotCon channel, so everyone will be able to watch that stuff eventually. I don't know how long it'll probably take a few weeks for them to get that information up there, or get those videos up, but that'll be cool. Matthew, your week's been good. You've got a bunch of music projects going now, and that's given you strength to make it through the work each day. You're officially no longer skinny fat after weeks of dieting. Congratulations, that's huge. This spring, summer, this year is really my year where I need to get the bicycle out of storage and like start exercising and trying to get into shape. Because yeah, I'm not doing well either. But that's great that you're making progress on that. Congrats. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be cool to see him on YouTube. Maybe next year I can give a talk on I don't know what I would talk about. Either making a custom isometric auto tiler that can handle like an arbitrary number of layers, which seems dry and boring. Or I can maybe do a talk about building all of the editing tools for your game in your game so that it all runs in real time at runtime. It's kind of like a yo dog. I heard you like game dev. I put game dev tools in your game dev tools so you could dev while you're gaming. I don't know. Building the game inside of the game is probably what I'd call it. But thing is, to give a talk about something, you really got to do something first. So we really got to you know, do something. Really got to get these tools done and get some stuff going that looks good. It seems good. All right, so what are the consequences of trying to make a separate buffer for the preview? We basically need another entity. So right now we have the game world construction entity. And that's like the yard. That's like the area that you can build in. Excuse me. We need a second one, which is like the preview. It's a bit of space, but it's fine because it's an edit time only thing. Matthew, speaking of game dev, do I have any recommended resources for learning about implementing ECS within Godot? Oh no. You're going to go back through some of my older streams to see how I went about it. Do not do what I did. Do not. There are some good ones. There are some good things. Honestly, if I had to go back and do it again, what I would do is I would learn how to do a GD extension, and I would implement Flex, which Flex already exists and it's C++. And it's got like, you know, it's something that I could integrate, because this to me is like the preeminent ECS system, the one I'm most impressed in. And I honestly, from a design standpoint, I most used their docs on how to. I didn't use their docs, but the creator of Flex made a bunch of blog posts about it, about how they built their ECS. I ended up doing something kind of different. Sander Mertens. Sonder or Sander? Mr. Mertens wrote a bunch of blog posts on how to do this. And this is an awesome ECS. That said, there are other entity component systems in C#, which would be a little more straightforward to probably implement. I'm trying to think of what they are. Here's the thing, Matthew. And I knew this before I started, and doing this has only reinforced my appreciation of this. The default answer to do I need an entity component system if you're making a game is no. The default answer is no. And I think you need a significant body of evidence to the contrary to entertain the idea that you do that, to flip that, which I know is annoying and a bummer, but like I think it's genuinely true. Like I don't actually need this entity component system. I'm using it because I like it, and I kind of wanted to make one, and what I ended up with is kind of terrible. But it's something I'll keep working on and improving, unless I just, give up and switch it out with Flex. But it was one of those things. It's like I could either learn C++ and make my own stuff in GD extension, or I could use my decade plus experience in C# and make something far worse in a language I'm much more comfortable in. So I went with the make something far worse in a language I'm more comfortable in. But that's not the correct. I don't think that's like the best thing. And it's one of those trade-offs you have to make when you make a game. It's like, are you trying to make something, or are you trying to learn something? And it's like, if you've got time, I don't know. Those are my somewhat conflicted feelings about it. All right, Matthew, it's super helpful. Not at all a bummer. A lot of your interest is actually purely academic because you think systems level stuff is super fascinating. That interest spills over into other areas of your life too. I get it for sure. I think you can approach Godot with a very composition orient. You're more in the space of trying to learn something. Well, then go to it. Go to it. So yeah, San, let me see if I can find some of their blogs that I read. Let's see if we can find their blogs. Yeah, so they have a Medium page, and they have this Building an ECS series that they made a few years ago, and there's a bunch of different posts in it. And I think if you're just trying to understand how an entity component system works and how you could build one, I would read this series. Let me find their Medium account here. ajmmertens.medium.com. Let me just throw it in the chat here. Their series on this stuff is really cool. And they have a few different things about it. And it's all in the context of Flex. So it's all written in C or C++ or whatever, but super cool, super smart guy. Most of what I learned that I didn't learn directly from the docs and Unity, I learned from them. You've consumed a bit of info about just approaching problems from a compositional standpoint in general, and that's part of what led you to this. Yeah. You can do that just in Godot, the way Godot is constructed. There have been arguments about this all the time, about Godot's node structure in like whether you would consider it like an entity component architecture. And it's like, you could easily approach all of your architecting in Godot and just regular Godot with a very compositional mindset already, just given the way that the system works. I know a lot of people's default approach is like very OOP, very object-oriented in Godot, but it's written in such a way that you could be very much more modular and compositional about it. It's like, it's a lot more open to that than you might expect just based on how the docs are written and how people's conversations about it are generally. You do not have to do your Godot GD script stuff in an object-oriented way. It's a lot more flexible than that. Hey, still needs work. How's it going? Rolling on in here. Welcome in. We're having a relatively short post GodotCon Boston stream where I'm trying to focus and not succeeding. I'm good. I'm tired. I got in at about midnight. All right, two nerdy nerds screaming in here with their take. You would love sticking to composition. You end up falling back to inheritance whenever you're not sure how to achieve something with composition alone. So currently always a mix of both. I think that's reasonable. And I think you can do both pretty well. That it's the difference between an is-a relationship and a has-a, right? A thing is a X or it has a Y. And I think just the way we think, we generally speak in both terms. Something can have both kinds of relationships. You understand tired? I feel that still needs work. Is it like you still doing school stuff, or are we far enough in May that stuff is mostly over? I guess it's all coming to a head. But how are you doing, two new nerds? We missed you in Boston. At GodotCon. I got to hang out with a lot of great Godot Twitch streamers. I got to hang out with Practical NPC, JD Does Dev, Ezra, developer Ezra, Exodrifter, Just Covino. It was awesome. There were a bunch of Twitch streamers there, and YouTubers too, like Stay at Home Dev, Acerola. There's awesome people there. You snooped in on some of the IRL streams? Nice. Yeah, I know Covino was walking around most of Tuesday, and then Practical streamed their game showcase on Wednesday. I'm jealous. Now they're just wandering around PAX, and I had to fly back. Could not afford to stay for PAX this year. I'm seriously considering it next year if it comes back, if we do it again. School stuff. You started streaming. Still needs work. Amazing. Shout out. Still needs work. That's great. Ship it. Streaming wears you out more than school. I know. I feel the same way because I work a lot. I usually do my like 4-hour workday, or not workday. I usually do like a 3 or 4 hour work block, then a 3 or 4 hour streaming block, then another 3 or 4 hour work block. And the middle streaming block it takes so much out of me that the second work block for me is that's where I usually put my like. I usually just have to focus in and like work on a project or something at work. Like I I have so little energy left. I get the work done, but like I have to be very careful about what work I schedule before and what work I schedule after. All right, so what we're doing is we're going to make a separate buffer, a separate block buffer for the preview. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new static entity for that. Right now we just have an entity called a construction entity. I would like to call it something else, and I would like it to not be hard-coded like this. I think what we're going to eventually do is have these be static entities that will be owned by certain systems. I guess it's actually better if the world owns them. And we're going to basically just reserve entities for certain purposes. So right now we have the construction entity. I also want like a preview block entity. So we'd have like an entity that's like the preview block entity. We'll do that for now. I want to rename these to be less terrible. But let's save that for a restructure. I kind of do want to move these down to the edit system. But maybe not. Because if I move them to the edit system, they have to be static. Which is fine, because that means we just record specific entity IDs. But it is better kind of if we put them all in one place, huh? We could have like a reserved entity list. And what we do is we have like the list exist on the world, but like the systems ask for a reserved entity ID, and then the world gives them back a reserved entity ID. That way it's not static, but we can still have these reserved entities. That's maybe the way to do it in the long term, because then they don't have to be... They're still available to anyone without a direct reference to a system, but you only reserve as many entities as you have systems that need them. And the system theoretically only reserves the entity when it needs it. I guess it depends on how many systems need access to the reserved entity. So like the construction entity, oh yeah, it's being used in the tool system and the tile system and the fill system. That's temporary though, maybe. Maybe. I guess those are all edit systems or subsystems. Those are all edit subsystems. So maybe the edit system reserves the entity. And then the subsystems use it as needed. I don't know. Well, let's figure out who even is initializing this. The game script is, isn't it? So yeah, here we'll reserve entity ID 00 for the world's so-called construction yard. Construction entity. We'll do the same thing here. Yeah, this is really terrible, and we're going to come up with a better way of doing this. So we're going to reserve entity ID 10 for the world's so-called preview block entity. Here's the thing. I'm going to not say reserving entities ID 00. We're just going to say reserving an entity. Can't really call it a layer. Block buffer. So we'll create an entity, then we'll say world dot add buffer component block buffer block world dot preview This is kind of a weird approach. There's very good reasons why we're separating this preview block layer that I was explaining earlier. They're great reasons. Don't scrutinize them or think about them too much. It solves a number of problems. I didn't have an urgent reason to do it though, so I was like, we can do this later. Now I have a more urgent reason, which has to do with camera rotation. And so I feel like it's just worth it to do now. But it is a little complicated. And I never really intended for multiple block buffers to be needed. Like, I didn't intend for multiple block buffers to ever be needed for a single entity or a single space, like a ship or something like that. But there seems to be a good reason to do so here. So here we've got buffer, which is we just grab this component. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say preview. It's going to be game.world.getComponent. Block buffer. Yep. All right, so the places. So here's the trick. Here's the trick. So this buffer, this what I'm just calling buffer, which is certainly not going to get confusing, and we certainly don't need to rename. I'm hesitant to rename it because we have about 1 million references to it, and it's a local variable. But I need to clean up some of that stuff anyway. This, I am really unhappy with the tool system. I'm happy in that it works, but I'm really unhappy with the way I've structured it as just this like nested switch statement thing. I don't want to have a system, or I should say, I don't want like a component-based system. Like I don't want to be creating entities and processing them in one frame and then deleting them, which is why we have the command, our little command pattern we're using for processing input. But the way we're having to parse it ends up being this weird switch statement, which I don't totally love. But whatever. So the current problem is we need to add this preview layer. So the preview layer is going to really only exist in this hover branch. The thing that's weird, it's going to exist in the hover and the place branches. And then so the hover one is just... So if we're hovering, which is just when the mouse is floating around and you've got like something in your clipboard or you've got an active block tool and you want to preview what that block will look like in the world, if you place it, that's the preview layer. So we're only going to be affecting that preview layer in hover. We're no longer going to be directly writing into the actual block buffer of the like actual set blocks. Same thing with placement. When we're just in the middle of a placement, we're just going to be messing with the preview because we're essentially just changing the preview. And then when we end the placement, we'll formalize it. We'll do the same thing with the select. We'll pretty much do it with a bunch of these. Anything that makes a temporary change is going to write to the preview buffer until it gets finalized. And then it will get written out to the more formal. I don't know. I need a word for it. So if this is the preview, what's the opposite of the preview? It's almost like one of them's tentative and the other is, well, tentative is too long a word. Could be provisional. And then, yeah, I don't know. Again, 90% of programming is just picking good names for stuff, right? And then the rest of the problems are cache invalidation. All right, so I understand how we're going to substitute in the preview block thing to this. What I need to think about more is how we're going to substitute it into the tile system. Also, the fill system is theoretically running, but I haven't seen a result of its behavior like in so long. As far as I can tell, it's running, but it's like literally never doing anything. I don't want to look into that for a second. Seems like fill task is never completed. So the fill system never runs. Kind of a problem. Also, does the fill system need to consider the preview block? Probably not. Matthew Sparks, naming things is impossible in any field. You've been trying to come up with a project name for the music you've been making for like literal months. Damn. Yeah, I run into that problem a lot. The best and worst expression of that problem is Digital Iliad itself. Like this is the name of my channel, it's the name of my socials, it's all of this stuff. But that's because when I started all of this, it was around this project. It was, I want to create dev blogs, or I want to, you know, I need to build up a following around this game that I'm working on that's going to take like 5 or 6 years. And so I built up all my socials around this game, and then Digital Iliad kind of became my alias, when originally it was just the name of the game. And I don't have like a better name. I can't think of a name for the game. I mean, I have a few years to figure it out, but like, I don't know what I do. I don't know what I do about that. All right, I need to focus. Okay, so we got the tile system. The tile system pulls in the block buffer, grabs the span. We update the tile map data. The tile system is going to have like maybe there's even a different tile system for edit time versus play time. I don't love that, but that's not a bad way to do it, because the tiling system is going to work differently. Actually, that is a terrible idea. We could just have a little bit of extra behavior that runs in one mode or the other mode. Because yeah, integrating the second buffer is awkward. It's a little awkward. All right, so when we're doing the tile stuff, yeah, we're basically gonna need to loop through. We need to move this, maybe. Are we ever using any of this code? No, we spend all this time creating this bounds and we don't use it. Cool. We were using it at one point when we were testing the tile grid system. Is my coffee still drinkable or is it dead? Nearly dead. Mostly dead? Is that the reference? All right, so the impetus for doing this was so that we can keep the preview block camera relative at all times. Like it always, like as you turn the camera around, the preview block stuff always stays in the same spot. Which doesn't work if everything is being previewed to the same layer. So that's why we're doing it differently. So what we need to do is when we go through the process to... So whenever we reference that preview layer, we don't do this process of writing it to the relative position. Or we do, but I have to think about this. I have to be able to explain this more clearly. Because right now we do write the tile to the relative position. But we write it from the absolute position. And actually for this block buffer, there's no distinction. So this is actually kind of a special block buffer that doesn't ever get... Well, I guess there is a world in which it does rotate. Because there's going to be a separate control. Like, let's say if you have something in the clipboard. If you rotate the camera 90 degrees, the clipboard stays the same. But if you rotate the clipboard 90 degrees, that's different. The clipboard should rotate 90 degrees. Because you might copy something and be like, I want this room, but I want it on the other side of the ship and I want it rotated. I mean, you probably would even want it flipped, but let's not think about flipping right now. That would be pretty easy to do, but let's not think about it. So we probably just do a different pass. We just ask if their preview block is like empty or whatever. In the same way that the clipboard may be active or not, we can just ask if the preview is active. Because the preview is not the same as the clipboard. They're different. They are structured somewhat similarly. And in fact, the clipboard should actually probably become an entity. Like, the clipboard should become its own block buffer so that we can select something and we could copy it to the clipboard, or we could, like, save it to disk. We could be like, this, I want to turn this into a brush or something, or I want to save this as its own thing that I can load separately. We'll probably eventually want that. It's maybe a little it's maybe a little outside of our current concern, but So we have a number of distinct phases to the tile editor system, the tile map system. The first phase is this: you determine what the hull types of the tile are. And that's all about like looking to see like, oh, so we're rendering the X face of this block. Is there another block such that our X face is like smooshed up against this other block? Well, that makes it a certain kind of hull, right? So like if it's smooshed up against another block, that becomes a middle hull tile because it's entombed. Entombed is the word I like to use, but it basically means that there's no daylight. It's just right up against another tile. So you render that a certain way. That would, and then if you cut it away and you see it, it'll look like, right now it's just dark gray, but eventually it will look like pipes and conduits and things like that. Because that means that that's part of the interior of like the ship, like maybe the wall or something like that. That's a middle hull. And so it also looks and says, instead of having another face right up against it, what if it's blank? What if it's like exposed? Okay, what is it exposed to? Is it part of an interior compartment? So like, is it a compartment in the ship? In which case, that's when you render like maybe, right now we just render a light gray. And that implies that it's like the inside of the ship, like you're rendering a room of the ship, like an actual proper wall. Or there might literally be nothing on the other side of this tile. It could be outer space, a vacuum. In which case, right now we just render like a mid-tone gray, but we call that the outer hull, obviously. And so we do all of that, and we do all of that with the block buffer comparing to its own blocks. We also need to do that with the preview block buffer. One thing that's a bit of an issue, we're going to ignore it right now, but it will become a performance concern later, which is that block buffers are all one size. Right now, they're just the maximum supported size. And that's caused a number of problems. That causes like the rotational problems, which is the issue of like, you draw a block composition, you like draw whatever composition, doesn't really matter what, just something that we can tell. And then you like rotate around, and it rotates around the world origin. It doesn't rotate around itself, which is what it should do. This should just turn on itself. And we can do that as a trick, as a bit of a trick from like a visual standpoint, rather than like, you know, rewriting the block buffer. But when we go out and save the block buffer, like when we're done editing it, we definitely want to save only this section, like the section that's actually used. You don't want to save the whole theoretical maximum space. You want to just save what's actually being used. But during edit time, you might as well leave it in its maximum state, because it might change very quickly. You might just decide to like, oh, here's a big floor that we're going to draw, you know? You might like increase the size significantly. And you might increase the size every time. So you might bop, 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 bop. You might just keep increasing the size, and we don't want to have to reallocate that all the time. Yeah. Sorry we're not actually getting a lot done. I'm just kind of thinking about what we're doing next. I'm kind of falling out of love with the line overlapping. I'm running into some issues, especially with the grid system, the tile grid, which is like the selection overlay. I'm like kind of quickly falling out of love with the way that we've set this up. So what we set up at the moment is that let's just grab this block. I know I've done this explanation like multiple times, but it's something that we could change, and it's something that I'm seeing more and more evidence to suggest that we probably should. So here's what we currently have. So if you start tessellating this, just this gray block, do I have a good, yeah, here we go. So you start tessellating this, we grab it, copy it, paste it, start tessellating. You see how the outlines overlap? Also, if we go this way, the same thing happens. It only happens up, down, not left, right. And it does minimize the amount of outlines that you see, but the auto tiler already fixes that. And what it leads to is kind of a problem of it's based on the Y sorting and the Z index. So certain tiles will overwrite other tiles. And you'll see weird things happen because of this. So like if we just open this up and we make something, let's just make a block. So we're just gonna make like a single block. So we'll define the space, go down a layer here, and we'll just make like a cube. Yeah, when I said single block, I meant like a big cube. So let's just make a big cube. It actually doesn't matter whether we hollow this out or not. Actually, for our argument's purpose, it's actually better if we don't hollow it out. So if I then select this, and I select it like this is fine. You see the white outlines in most cases. It's not totally fine though, and I will show you why. So this is like if we go from the top down, but what happens if we do the selection from the bottom up? Like here. So what if we do it like this, and then we go up, but we only select like half of it? Well, now it's being cut off because this higher block here is overwriting what's down here, and it's not letting it do its outline thing. Now, you could get crazy with this in terms of auto tiling. Like you could have tiles, you could have this tile be affected by, you know, a tile beneath it, but that's complicated. It might end up being the way we do this, but it's complicated. And there's actually a couple other cases that are kind of annoying for this same reason. Like, oh, that's weird. Why is it doing that? So like, let's make this a double wall, because for our argument, we need it to be a double wall. So if we got this double wall and we select like part of it, like we select like partly into it. Oh, why is this behaving weirdly? I can't select anything anymore there. Oh, the floor is gone. I erased the whole floor. Oops. All right, so if I select like this, so that we get part of the upper level and part of the down, when I go over like this, you see the same outline problem. Because this second layer of wall is not allowing the outline to show through. So again, we could work our way around this, but it's like a consequence of the fact that certain kinds of outlines overlap each other, but only vertical ones. So like if we start stacking boxes, we get this. The outlines collapse. But only for that purpose. Like if we just start attaching them to the side, you'll notice that there's this double thick outline here. We can make this go away if we just change the way this is structured. We just do this. We could even do it like this. Do it like this. So if we do it like this problem goes away. In fact, it looks maybe a little better in the corners. Because now when we overlap it, now you see the double thick lines on both sides. And yeah, it looks stupid, but the auto tiler already hides all this stuff. So like, you know, from a practical standpoint, this doesn't really matter. But it would give us consistent outlines when like surfaces change. So like something like this. So you'd see this would look like this. I'm kind of hand correcting this a little bit. The auto tiler would hide the outlines from the contiguous surface, but you'd still have the big thick double outline here where you have a surface change. So I don't know. I'm tempted to switch to this. To switch away from our overlapping outline to a non-overlapping outline, which would simplify a lot of the stuff I'm trying to do with selection overlays and everything. It would be a bit, excuse me. It would be a little bit of work, but doing this later would be a lot more work. Like I've started mocking up like more art, like additional pieces of build pieces and stuff. And the more and more I do this before we end up changing it, the worse and worse this transition is going to be. If we end up going with something like this where we switch. So I don't know. I'm very seriously considering making that switch sooner than later. And it would fix, now that we're starting to overlay different things, it would fix a lot of stuff. All right, I'm pretty sure my coffee is going to be dead now, but we're going to try it.
He's dead, Jim.
Yeah, he is. All right, I said he's dead, but I'm going to go for one more sip of coffee because I'm desperate for coffee today. All right, we're switching to water. Sorry if there's background noise. I use like a Elgato's like noise canceling pure voice AI thing. Sometimes it works good, and other times I look over and I'm like, you didn't noise cancel any of that. Jacob Dev, how's it going? It's good. We're back from GodotCon Boston. We're very tired, and we're trying to remember how to game dev. How are you doing? What have you been up to? Didn't stick around for PAX. I wish, Jacob Dev. I did not have like the PTO saved up to pull something like that off. Maybe next year. If it happens again and the timing is correct, like if we do GodotCon in Boston again and it's like the first half of the week and PAX East is the second half of the week, I'm doing it because I've never been to a PAX. I think they did it on purpose because they're also having this thing called Boston Game Dev Week. Let me see. Let me look for it. Boston Game Dev Week. They're also doing this sort of thing, which is cool. They also have a bunch of other stuff happening this week. So like GodotCon was Monday. This website's pretty slick. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They also had a bunch of other stuff here. They had the BOGO, which is like the Boston Godot meetup group. They also did an event. They have this thing called Relaxing Chats, which is pretty cool. They had the Boston Indies demo night. And then today is the Made in Massachusetts demo night. And they're doing more Relaxing Chats, which I think this is online. I might try to watch this. Yeah, there's additional events happening besides PAX Dev. That's like Boston game dev stuff put on by local Boston game devs. Which their scene there is awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty interested in this relaxing. Oh, is this in person? This is in person. Never mind. I was hoping this would be something you could listen to online, but I don't think it is. Darn it. Darn it. Oh, well, but yeah, there's lots of stuff. If all of this stuff coincides next year, I'm going. I don't care. I don't care what the damage to my wallet is. I'm gonna do it because it was awesome. I loved being in Boston. PAX is so fun. Smooth in a second. Did you become subbed again while AFK? You did not. That's your VIP badge. Yeah, it was great. No ads? Oh, well. Oh, no, we don't have pre-roll ads. So let me know next time I run mid-roll ads. We'll see. Boston and great. You went purely for PAX East a few years ago. Bit hard to get across the country for it. Yeah, I feel that. It was really cool. Traveling around Boston on public transit was awesome. It was so easy. Their train system is so good. Like, I was coming home from the bar, like, late at night, and I'm, like, used to, like, Muni or whatever, and I'm, like, expecting there to be, like, 20 minutes between the buses, because it's, like, midnight. And it was like a bus, it was like a train, an actual train every, like, 6 minutes. And I'm like, this is incredible. And they had so many lines and so many places to transfer. And unlike San Francisco, you can just tap your credit card. You can just pay directly with, like, Apple Pay, Android Pay, or whatever. Maybe not Apple Pay, but yeah, they had mobile pay instead of needing. I still got a Charlie card. That's my, like, one big souvenir from Boston is my Charlie card for public transit. I want to start collecting transit cards from different cities when I travel. That'd be fun. Jacob, you usually hit up PAX West just a few hours from you. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Boston was, like, extremely walkable too. Yeah, it's also very walkable. You look on the map and there's so much going on. Like, there are all these rivers and stuff, and, like, you think it's, like, this big city, and then you, like, look at how far it would be to walk across it, and you're like, oh, I could do that. Easy. Yeah, we walked around. It was kind of raining a lot, so we didn't walk around as much as I would have liked, but if I go back, I would definitely go, like, a day early to, like, just do more sightseeing and stuff. How is it versus SF? It's not as hilly. All the bridges are walkable. I was worried about that too, because, like, not every bridge is walkable in some of these places, but pretty much in Boston, it seemed like you could just hoof it. But between that and the trains, it was cool. There was a lot. I didn't realize how it's all brick. It's like, if you're in the older part of Boston, it's just everything is structural brick, which is cool. But as someone from San Francisco, you know, you don't see any brick buildings because we don't have any more. We don't have any left. They just keep falling down. Yeah, we were staying at Beacon Hill, which might be the only hill in Boston, as far as I could tell. We were right at the foot of it. So we would go around that, but that didn't even look like much of a hill compared to a San Francisco hill either. Like, that's no Knob Hill or whatever. It was cool. I enjoyed it a lot. I had last been in Boston like 20 years ago when I was still in, like, school. It was like a school trip or something. I remember it being cool, but it was cooler than I remembered. Yeah, being from California, looking out, you just don't see mountains or anything. It's weird. That part is weird, but it's so verdant green. I mean, it rained the whole time we were there, so I'm not surprised. But like we were flying in, and I think we were being told to circle, and it was just woods and rivers, and it was just so beautiful. It was almost like being in the Pacific Northwest, like being around, like, Portland or something. Just how many trees and forests and stuff there were, like, pretty much right up to the city, to, like, right up to where the city started. You don't really see that in California. We don't really have that kind of kind of nature and city mixture like that, really. Super cool. Was this my first time east? No. But it's definitely my first time in like 15, 20 years. My school did the whole big, East Coast trip where you go through like 19 states or whatever, and you see DC and Boston and New York and all that stuff. So I remember a lot of it. Boston's pretty weird. We were walking around, me and my buddy were walking around, and we saw like this old cemetery, and we were like, oh, let's walk in there and see what's going on in there. And there was just like, it was just like, oh, there's John Hancock and Paul Revere and Benjamin Franklin's parents for some reason. Like, it was cool. There's like lots of crazy old history there, which makes sense, but it was funny. I mean, it makes sense, but I enjoyed it. I want to go back. I had a good time. I hate flying, but it was good. My eardrums almost burst landing, flying back last night. I like could not pop them, and the pressure just kept increasing and increasing. I was like, this isn't good. Yeah. The worst time that happened to me was flying back while I was getting sick. I didn't know I was getting sick, but I was like super congested, and yeah, I feel like one of my my eardrums almost burst, which is apparently something that can't happen. But I was fine. I was fine. I just hate flying. Every time we take off and land, I'm like ready to die. I'm like, I've lived a good life. Like, it would be okay. All right, I'm not being very productive, but I think that's mostly my lack of focus and tiredness, but it's okay. I'm enjoying our conversation here. Our goal right now is to like lay the groundwork for replacing, for adding an additional buffer that's just the preview blocks, just the blocks that are like being considered, but haven't yet been committed. Maybe committed is the right word. Imagine the US with Boston's transit system. It's good. Apparently it's gotten a lot better over recent years. Unlike our transit system, which just gets worse and worse every year. Jacob, you flew a bunch and it was fine until you just got sick like 50% of the time. Yeah, that has not happened to me yet. But I definitely push it. I definitely stayed up too late each night and like drank a little too much each night. Which I don't normally do. But, you know, when in Rome, or I guess in this case, Boston. They had a lot of great local beers that I wanted to try. Smooth in a second. You still think we need monorails up and down our streets in like San Francisco, like our major streets? I think that'd be cool. I mean, we were supposed to have a Muni line on Geary. RIP. That would have been cool. It would probably make this have transformed the street quite a bit, though. All right, so the first thing I want to do with this preview buffer thing is I need to make the distinction between the buffer that we're currently using right now and this new preview buffer. And one of the things for that is to like name it. So right now this is the preview buffer. And I kind of like that name because it's both preview and that it hasn't been committed, and it's preview and that it's before you take the camera rotation into account. Like this specific one of the multi-faceted reasons we're making this separate layer is so that it's camera independent. It does not consider the camera angle. So I like that, but I need a word for the other buffer. I'm like thinking about synonyms for like, because the preview is like a temporary buffer and then the other one is more permanent. Not stable. Committed is like a word that could be used, but I'm just thinking about some synonyms. Because right now I just call it buffer, and we should probably stop calling it buffer. Right now it's considered the construction entity, but I would like to call that something else too. So I'd like to have preview block entity, and then I would like to have a different entity, and that entity is like the committed. It's not the preview, but it's like the, I don't know. Let's see, what's the opposite of a preview? It's not the opposite, but it's like the next stage after a preview. Naming things is hard. Synonyms for permanent. Fixed isn't terrible. Secured. I like committed, I guess. Established? That's not bad. Ooh, settled. Maybe settled. I think it's gonna be settled. I think that's how I'm gonna refer to it. So there's the preview block entity, and then there's gonna be like a settled block entity. So you're previewing it, and it's like the transient or temporary blocks, and then those blocks end up settling into a permanent structure. We're gonna call it the settled block entity for now. We can say settled blocks versus preview blocks. All right, so we're gonna have two different layers, the settled ones. Let's get this construction progress thing out of here. We don't need it. I would like to store this differently. But for right now, we'll just do it like this. Reverse the order because they're alphabetically different now. So we've got our preview blocks. This is the stuff that we're considering adding, that we're in preview of. And then we've got the settled blocks, and this is like once it's been committed. Once they've been placed. All right, so that's that. So let's start renaming things. So we're going to start referring to this as... Oops. Instead of buffer. Work time for you. Thanks for the stream. No, thank you for stopping by. Hope you have a great rest of your work day here. See you next time. All that's settled. We'll call that preview. I do want to refactor some of these functions so that we don't have to do things like pass in the buffer and the buffer's span. But we actually need to stop doing it this way. Anyway, so whatever. So okay, so now what we need to do is we need to swap. Well, we need to do a few other... We need to lay a little bit more groundwork first. Because if we just start telling the tools to write to the preview blocks, to the preview buffer instead of the settled block buffer, none of it will get rendered. So we need to lay a little more groundwork, probably mostly in the tile system. All right, so the easy way to do this, I say easy. The thing to do here probably is to split up these passes a little bit more. And in fact, we can do some interesting things here. I was struggling to manage the cutaway, the tile. Hey, no, Jewel. Maximum work. Maximum warp. Pronounce it correctly. I need to add some more of these. I need to add like the Patrick Stewart, like I need to add the Picard, like make it so. I need to add a few more modern. No, don't worry about interrupting. How are you doing, No Joel? You had a great stream today? Nice. Sorry, I didn't catch it. We're having kind of a low-key stream today. I'm getting used to... I'm jet-lagged a bit. Kind of tired. You're struggling with isometric pixel art? Let's go. We were just talking about changing some of our pixel art a little bit to deal with the overlapping pixels issue that we have because of the choices that we made. And we were looking at a simple change we can make to fix that. It'll be a bit of work, but it's only ever going to be more work as we make more art. So it's one of those changes where it's like, if we're going to do it, we need to do it now. So maybe we'll work on that tomorrow or something, or I'll think about it and we'll do it soon either way. It would fix a lot of our issues that we're having with overlays. And it will probably make things easier in the future. And it gives us some nice thick outlines in certain cases, contexts, which you love to see. Can you ask something about Sprite? You can ask. I am no Sprite expert, but I would love to try to help. Are you working on your Ludum Dare game? Or is this for another little isometric project? Yeah, the Ludum Dare game. Yeah, cool. Shoot. I would love a distraction for what I'm supposed to be doing, which is gonna be a painful refactor here. And it's actually a good excuse to like refactor and maybe split this like mega function up. Split this like 1500 line. Actually, I guess it's not that bad. Split this function up that's like almost 1,000 lines. Would love a reason to do that. And in fact, I feel like I'm gonna get rid of this alternative function that's supposed to just map changes. I think that's gonna be so hard to do and is becoming so obsolete. I'm just gonna get rid of it now. It's in Git. But I feel like we've changed that process enough that keeping this branch is not helpful. Just get rid of it. Make me feel better about my code, my script length here. Yeah, there we go. No, Jewel, do you know? Okay, I saw the second line, but I'm still going to read this. Do you know if there's a fast way to select an area by defining just the edges? The lasso tool let you only draw continuous lines. Never mind, you just figured it out. Yeah, there's a magic version of the lasso tool that will select contiguous, or it guesses where the edges are basically, and it selects everything inside. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good tool. I guess it doesn't guess. It selects contiguous areas of the same color. That's cool. You're trying to make some large scale changes without having to painstakingly do it by hand. You just clicked wrongly? Okay. Always blame the misclick. All right, so yeah, this update tile map data entirely. We could take the entirely part out. So what we're gonna do is probably say something like update, or something like updates settled tile map data. And then we'll also have like an update like preview tile map data or something like that, or like incorporate preview. I don't know. Because we're trying to render the settled data, but we want to incorporate the preview data. We want to incorporate multiple different block buffers into one final tile map data collection. It's actually dozens. or hundreds of tile map layers individually, but we want to combine multiple different block buffers, and we need to do it differently because we need to relate them differently in terms of some of it's camera relative and some of it's absolute. We'll need some more utility functions for the AABB to arbitrarily rotate the clipboards and stuff, but that's all right. I am going to snooze the ads, which means our pre-rolls are going to start in a few minutes. But we've been live for 2 hours. I see what the next phase of this refactor is going to be. I don't have time to do it today, but we can probably pick it up soon. How many references to block buffer are there? Oh, just here. Thank God I parameterized this a little bit. So let's rewrite some of this. Oh, so we hard code the nodes that we're targeting. We need to stop doing that. But for now, that's okay. Hey, Rhiannon Journey. It's nice to see you. I'm sorry I was just like, I think we're going to wrap it up soon. Got a lot of people who came and said hi today. This is our first stream back from GodotCon Boston, and I'm just exhausted. But I know what we want to work on. It's not the thing I thought we were going to work on when we started today, but I think it's going to be important. We might work on some art tomorrow if I decide to redo... Well, I have decided to redo that art. It's just a question of when. Tuner Nerds, we wanted to welcome you back. That's so nice. Thank you, nerds. Rhiannon, no problem. Totally missed the Discord announcement. It was great. It was great, Rhiannon Journey. There were lots of people there that we know that we got to meet in a meet space. We got to hang out with JD Does Dev, who is killer at karaoke, as I've learned. Developer Ezra. We got to hang out with Practical and Bad Cop, whom we already knew, but it was nice getting to hang out with them. Just Covino. I got to listen to some talks by Acerola and Stay at Home Dev, and lots of other great Godot devs and members of the Godot Foundation and W4 Games, and it was awesome. Boston is a beautiful city. It was a little muggy and wet. Kind of rained most of the time we were there, but it was... I like it. I enjoyed it. It was great. Coming back, I'm really inspired. Maybe next year I can give a talk on building your game inside your game. Yo, dog, I heard you like editors. We put an editor inside your editor so you could edit while you edit. Oop. Yeah, it was really great. I have that combination of like inspired and exhausted. That excited, exhausted combination. Just say it's a talk on recursion. Yeah. Bad Cop showed off this interface that they've made for streaming that's like almost like a Minority Report or like Iron Man interface. It looks so awesome. I've never seen them use it before. But there was some amazing stuff people showed off there. Tuner Nerds game in your game, but you have to code it with a tile map. Oof. I met someone who's doing the exact opposite of me. I'm just going to close my editor because we're not editing anything else right now. We're going to wrap up. I met someone who's doing the exact opposite of me. They asked a question at a talk, and I was like, can you explain what you're doing? And they're using 2D tile maps. They're using 2D information to generate a 3D world. So they're like laying out, they're using 2D tile maps to edit, to like lay out how they want the world to look across like multiple layers, and then they're like converting it to a grid map. So they're taking 2D and going into 3D. And I talked to them for a while because I was like, we're doing literally the same thing in the opposite direction. And so we're each building tools that does the opposite thing, and it's funny. It was interesting to hear about their performance issues. They have more performance issues than I do. But they mentioned some interesting tile map performance limitations that I've never run into. But it was cool to hear about some of the stuff people are trying to do. Yeah, it was really awesome. All right, I'm gonna set up the raid. We're gonna raid into Ezra, who I got to hang out with a lot, and I really enjoyed. No, Joel, you hit the limitations with better terrain immediately. Oh man. Have a great rest of your day. Yeah, thank you, nerds. I gotta go do some laundry and go back to work. I gotta catch up on work. But this has been awesome. Hydrate, that's a good reminder. Thanks for me in a second. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll probably have more energy. We'll probably do a full like 3+ hour stream. We got plenty of work to do before the next GodotCon. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Maximum warp.
Maximum warp.